What is up, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Start, Build, Grow Show. Today, I have a question for you. Are you in the home service space? Are you in the sales arena, selling to customers that are purchasing maybe roofing, siding, gutters, in-home, and you don't have the right mindset? Is your mindset killing your sales? We're going to dive into that and give you some tools to level up your game. Stay tuned. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Today's guest is a CEO, an author, a speaker, an entrepreneur, a leadership coach, and a mindset expert. Today, I'm hanging out with my man, Jacob Hicks, with Jacob Hicks Coaching. Welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, heck yeah. So, I mean, I like it's fun to premise, right? I'm in sales. I've been in sales my whole career. It sounds like you've been in your whole career as well. And you know that those days where you just feel completely defeated, like you just can't seem to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you work through that? Well, I'm going to go straight in. How do we work through that? And then I'm going to backtrack a little bit.
Yeah. So, it's kind of funny you say that. Like whenever somebody asks me a question like that, I always think about, I'm not sure if you're familiar with her or not, but there's this, she's in acquisitions, I think. There's this entrepreneurial gal that I follow called Cody Sanchez. And she has a quote that I love when we're talking about some of those things, where it says, like, you're not really an entrepreneur until you wake up in the middle of the night and have your head in your hands. You're not sure what to do. Right. And I feel like at some point we all kind of get there. And when it comes to like those times you're really struggling, like one of my favorite kind of like really practical strategies, like I said, you're going in, so let's go in. I stole from David Goggins. So I kind of like that crazy guy that's like running all those marathons and stuff. Oh, yeah. And it's called Go to the Cookie Jar. And like really what you need to be doing is like, it's really easy in like sales and entrepreneurship and just kind of life in general to not give ourselves enough credit, not give ourselves enough grace, and really say like, hey, I started this business, or hey, I started in this career however long ago. That's where I started and here's where I'm at. So it's really taking the time to say like, okay, how far have I come and what have I really accomplished along the way? And like when it comes to like the real practicality of that, it's actually sitting down and saying, okay, I started however long ago. Here are the actual tangible things that I've accomplished. This last year, I sold X amount of dollars. I sold this many different products. I tried these 3 different strategies. That first one didn't work at all. Here's what I learned from it. And these other 2 are kind of plugging along a little bit. And here's a new iteration of those things. So it's actually taking the time to sit down and say, hey, what have I accomplished along the way? Because like you said, it's so easy to kind of get in our own head and let our feelings kind of run the show sometimes and say like, man, this really sucks. This isn't working. And I'd probably just burn it all down.
Yeah, I love that. And I like to, among that same concept, I like to kind of think about, I'm a big sports fan, and I think about some of the greatest athletes of all time. And, like take Tom Brady, right? Or Michael Jordan. They've won multiple rings, and they're the type that they work so hard, and they finally get there. They finally get that achievement. And the very next day, what happens?
They go back to work.
They go right back to work. How do I get that again? Right.
Yep.
And I mean, sure, there's an instinct and a mindset around like dominating and being the best. But what you're talking about is actually along the journey, looking back. And another great reference book was from Ben Hardy, The Gap in the Gain. Mm-hmm. And I love that because it's like you practice looking back where you started, looking back where you came from, find that period of time, 1 month, 3 months, 5 years, 10 years down the road, and look where you were and look where you are now. And it's such a great little reset to just center and focus on appreciation and gratitude. And when we can do that, I feel like it makes it a lot easier to then be like, all right, I got to go. I got to move forward. Got to do the next thing and then start the process over again and really enjoy that journey. But looking back, I love that. Great start. This is a show about entrepreneurship, my man. Yeah. And you're an entrepreneur. And let's tell me the story. Give me kind of how you got into entrepreneurship and how you kind of built your business to where it is now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess kind of going all the way back, I started in sales doing retail. I sold suits for a long time, and then did, a variety of different roles kind of along the way from, inside sales to outside sales, where I was, traveling all over the Midwest, because I'm based in Iowa, and the country too at large. But I realized along the way that, kind of back up a little bit, I guess, growth has always been like a really big interest to me. Like I like figuring out ways to do things better or differently, or find new and better strategies to, accomplish more of what I want to be doing. And when I sat down actually with a coach about a couple of years ago now, just to see if getting coached myself would make sense. And during our conversation, he told me like, listen, man, we can definitely, get into some of those things you talked about. We can drive towards the goals that you want, but I think that you should consider being a coach. And I realized, in reflecting, because I mean, that was kind of out of left field for me, kind of a curveball. And when I was reflecting on some of those things he was saying, I realized that what I really loved in sales was helping people to navigate like the difficult, murky, or just like unfamiliar situations that a lot of times we find ourselves in. And we need like that expert to help us navigate some of those things.
Yeah.
And like sales is what I love. And I realized in my life in general, my sales career, I'm sure you've experienced this too, that a lot of the folks that start a business, that build a business, they want the business to do the business, right? Like if you're a roofer, you want to sell roofing contracts, you want to build roofs for people, right? And like, you don't necessarily want to be a guy that's selling stuff all the time. So helping those folks like figure out how they can build those systems around that so that they are providing a lot of value to anybody they come in contact with in their professional life has been a ton of fun. And then I started this whole journey, well, yeah, like I said, a couple of years ago now. And I mean, the topic of the day, like the mindset has been like a huge piece of it, a huge component.
Yeah. Love that. What was that like? Were you working for somebody else, or what was the transition like? You just decided like, I'm doing this for this person or this company, and you got someone to kind of give you that itch. And then was it like always there, or was it kind of more like a eureka moment, or is it finally like, all right, now I'm there, and now I just got to move forward?
I mean, kind of both, honestly. So you talk about like the entrepreneurial side of it. And I feel like I've always kind of had that itch a little bit. Like I like being able to be very autonomous. I like being able to do things how I want, when I want, how in which way I want. But I was working for other folks at that time. And what I've realized in my sales career, but also my entrepreneurial career, and I'm sure again you've experienced this in your own life, where like you don't like it's so interesting. Like when you're working for like a big company like I was, every dollar is the most important dollar, meaning that they don't care who you're talking to. They want you to sell to anybody and everybody. If they can afford it, they want you to sell it to them. It doesn't matter how much. It's every dollar matters, right? Because all they're really worried about is the bottom line. And the bottom line is important. But when you're an entrepreneur and you're a salesperson, I don't really think that that's true. I realize when it comes down to is you want to work with the right people at the right time. And that's not going to be everybody. Because sure, there could be a large pool of people that could afford your services, but like your personality style, the way you work, like just your work ethic. And then also like there's a lot of clients out there that can be kind of a pain in the butt, and you don't want to necessarily pull those people into your atmosphere. Right. So it's finding those right people at the right time is really kind of what's been driving me so far.
I love that. Yeah. Not everybody's your client. Right. I think that's something I've learned. I've been doing this 20 years for decades now. And I run a big sales team as well. And it's the same thing as we've learned. I think a lot of the guys have learned that after a few years of doing it, their first couple of years are just like anything and everything good. But what they don't realize is some of the triggers, some of the red flags up front, that if they train themselves to identify that, it actually frees up. If they don't go, or they learn how to fire clients, or learn not to move with a client, that actually opens up doors to backfill with more better clients.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say too, because like a lot of times, like when we're talking about the sales roles, especially, we think that we're trying to qualify people, right? And in my mind, I think we need to reverse it. We need to actually try to disqualify people. Find a reason, like, hey, like, does this person really make sense for the business I'm trying to build?
Yeah, it's a good tactic for hiring too. As well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, disqualify people.
Disqualify people. Are you the right fit? Yeah, and here's the thing, and here's what a little tip for salespeople and entrepreneurs. Most of us are highly driven, and we tend to think we one track. We just have this goal, and we're just going to do everything we can to go conquer and to make that goal and achieve that goal and achieve that thing. But one of the skills that I've had to learn over the years in managing lots of people and sales teams and building businesses up and down, and lots of it, is you really have to consider the logistics behind everything. And salespeople don't realize, they don't think about that. They think just get the ink and then do the thing and keep going, keep going. But what they don't understand is like, once the deal is signed and that it's whether it's a pass off or whatever your business model is, there's a lot of logistics that go on and other people in the organization that have to deal with that customer, deal with the challenges. So we don't think about that. We just want to sell. Right. So we need having a better understanding of the systems, the processes, the logistics behind the execution and production and collections and closing and finalizing this complete cycle of that customer is so important, because that's where efficiency, a lot of profitability gets lost. And, and you want to build a culture. Those two parties, those two sides need to be able to really, communicate and connect together. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, 100% agree with you, especially if we're talking about, like, hey, I'm just like the front end sales guy and then I hand it off to somebody else. Like, you have to be able to set those expectations up front. Like I've realized, I mean, both professionally, but also personally, like more often we are hurt by expectations than we are kind of anything else, right? Like if you're disappointed by something, it's because we had a higher expectation than the result that we received, right?
Yep.
So like if we're talking about the full sales cycle, actually bringing in people and saying like, hey, this is, such and such, they're going to be taking over from, from here on out now that we've got the contract signed. So figuring out some of those things is really, really important, and helping the client to really understand like, hey, this is the process that we're going to be doing kind of all the way from the start to the finish is hugely crucial.
Absolutely. And I teach too to when you're building out a sales system, include one of the steps is the process step. Like this is where you take the time and illustrate and really explain the process to the
Mm-hmm.
client, to the homeowner, to whoever you're selling to. And once they can understand the process behind everything, one, as a sales rep, it makes you look good because you actually know what you're talking about on the back end after you sign the deal. Two, it gives confidence with the homeowners because they are now signing up with a company or committing to a company that has their poop in a pile, so to speak, and like
Yes.
has their stuff together and they are systemized. Cool. Because that builds a lot of like a lot more like confidence from the consumer
Mm-hmm.
standpoint. Like, wow, okay, I am making a good decision here. So make sure you add that in and explain the process
Yeah. Well,
with
I'm
that
gonna
to
say
your
it
sales.
adds a ton of credibility, but then it also gives you as the salesperson or whatever your process is, it gives you the control in the conversation, which you 100% need to have, right? Like even though you're hopefully asking a lot of questions and they're doing a majority of the talking, it still gives you the lead to say like, hey, this is the process. So today we're going to be talking about X, Y, and Z with your roof or whatever it is that we're trying to sell. And here are the things we're going to be looking for and see if it really makes sense for us to work together or not.
Totally. Yeah. And you mentioned something about expectations too. And the old adage of what underestimate over promise, right?
Yeah.
Underestimate over deliver. And I kind of challenge that a little bit over my years of learning. I think you set reasonable expectations and work hard to overachieve on those expectations. But if you're
Yes.
setting your expectations so low that like anything marginal is good, then you're actually kind of doing yourself, in my opinion, doing yourself a disservice to the homeowner. So I think you want to set reasonable expectations by having a process, by being able to explain everything, and then doing everything you can to over deliver on those expectations. And I think ultimately that leads to a great customer experience.
Yeah. Well, and like the other piece of this too that I feel like can be so easy in the sales world is to be too short-minded. Like you're talking about, like you like, hey, you want to, under promise, over deliver, right? 100%. But if we're talking about like selling a home or purchasing, like fixing a roof or something like that, those aren't going to be transactions that we're going to do even necessarily every year, right? But if we're talking about the long term, like those people know people, and you will hopefully are having such a good experience with them that they are going to be sending people your way. It's like, hey, if you ever need somebody to come fix a roof, whatever, let us know, obviously. So I mean, it's building up that value over the long term, I think, is a place where we can lose a lot of profitability too.
100%. And I mean, there's never been or will ever be a better ROI than referrals.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So the referral business should always be a focus. And in businesses that are sustainable, they've been around a long time. You can ask and look at their charts and look, like my company's been around 20 years. Look consistently year over year, month over month. Every time I look at that lead report, referrals is still a large percentage of what we of how we earn business. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the cheapest as well. So
Yes.
you've got to be able to really, really focus on customer experience the entire way through. So let's circle back to, maybe I'm a solopreneur and I'm trying to get my business off the ground, whether it's a roofing company or, some sort of in-home company.
Yeah.
What are some tips to kind of wake up every day and keep that ball rolling up the hill as it feels like most of the time, and have the right mindset to be able to overcome those slumps and overcome those challenges? And as you mentioned in the beginning, like if you're not an entrepreneur, you get your entrepreneurial wings when you lose sleep and you're like, I literally, and there's times I've been literally under the desk, like, Lord, I literally do not know what to do, what move to make, what's the next one? How do I do this? And I think a lot of us have gone through that and can relate to that.
Yeah, well, like the fun, I don't know if it's fun or not, but the maybe interesting thing is that when it comes to those kind of days, it's not a one-off, right? Like we don't get it like a one time. It's going to keep happening over time. So when it comes to like being a solopreneur and figuring out some of these things, I mean, the first step that I always take people through is like, what is really your vision for this business, right? Like, are you like somebody like yourself, right? Where maybe you start with a small team and then eventually you grow it and you want to have like a big sales team and a whole bunch of guys working for you, or do you want to kind of keep it small and you want to just like build a business that's sustainable for you and your family, right? They may be passed down to one of your kids at some point. So it's really taking the time to sit down and say, okay, what is my vision for the future? What do I want this business to look like in 5 years, and why? Because that it's so easy to lose sight of those things and not even take the time to figure out what those things are. And then by the time year 2, 3, 4, 5 rolls around, we have a business that sure, maybe is growing, maybe it's, generating revenue for us, but it's not a business that we love anymore. It's something that is really, really awful and is like kind of just is sucking energy from us instead of giving energy to us. That's where I always recommend folks start, is figure out what your vision is for the business you're trying to build. The second step, what we always kind of walk through is like, what is your sales process now? Like, what are you doing? Are you doing it consistently? Are you waking up and cold calling? Are you door knocking? Are you trying to get referrals from friends and family? Are you building this thing on the side? What does that look like? And the first kind of big lesson that we always kind of talk through is the difference between marketing and prospecting, because a lot of folks, especially on the solopreneur game, love to do marketing, love putting their names up on billboards, on park benches, putting something on Facebook like every day. But actually sitting down and taking the time, like, what is the difference between marketing and prospecting? And the way I define it is that marketing is kind of your outreach, right? It builds awareness, like you said, like putting something on social media or putting an ad in the paper, something like that. But prospecting are actually the serious conversations that you can have on a reasonable basis. So for example, if you are trying to build like a social media funnel, and you are posting regularly, and you're trying to, maybe doing some paid ads or something like that to drive traffic to your page or your Instagram or whatever, how are you engaging with those people that are actually following with you afterwards? Because that's where your money is going to be. Are you engaging with them? Are you messaging them directly? Are you making sure you're providing valuable content and ultimately, hopefully converting?
Yep. Building relationships.
Yes.
Right. It's, unfortunately it's kind of cliche, but it's so true. And I've mentioned it probably 1,000 times on this show, how important that is. And we got to be thinking bigger picture, longer picture, playing the long game.
Yes.
And that's hard for a new entrepreneur or solopreneur, someone just getting started. Like, a lot of times we're acting out of desperation. Like, where do I get enough money to put gas on my truck on Friday? Like, where do I get money for this? So we're always thinking in the here and the now and kind of playing defense all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Where I like to do the analogy of, like, if you're playing defense, you're just reacting to everything that is happening to you today. You wake up and, all right, what's the biggest fire I have? Let's focus on that one. Oh, wait, there's another one. Wait, there's another one. Next thing you know, you're just playing defense all day. Offense is prospecting. Offense is actually taking time to sit and think and journal and write out like your game plan of what you're going to do each day and each week, each month, and then lead to that big vision, right? So I think you got to have a combination of the two, because that's just what it is when you get a business started. But don't get so in the weeds that you lose sight of that vision.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, and it comes down to like the consistency piece. Well, and the other piece too, that's can be really hard to keep in mind, is that when we are coming from that desperation piece, where it's like, hey, I need $50 to put gas in my truck so I can go to work on Monday, is like, are you following up consistently? Because I've seen it time and time again, and this is true across really kind of any industry, is that if you meet somebody one time at a networking event or whatever, and you expect to close business, usually you're going to close business about 2% of the time. But if you are following up with somebody consistently from a place of value, then you are more likely to convert business to the tune of like 80%. Like 80% of your business is in 5 or more follow-ups. So making sure you're following up consistently from value is key.
Some might call it just a job, but they don't feel the weight of it. Rain, snow, heat, aching bones, and late for dinner again. But you keep climbing because families count on you. Homes stand because of you. And that's why we built Peak Performance, the playbook for progress. Real numbers, real insights from real contractors like you. Scan the code. It's completely free because it's more than just a job.
Love that. So give me some pointers on, some tips on following up properly.
Yeah. So where I always start with folks, I'll just kind of give you some of my systems here. So where I always recommend people start is what I call my 10 by 10. Meaning that if you meet somebody at, let's say a networking event or whatever, you need to warm that person up, right? You need to build that relationship a little bit. So over the course of 10 weeks, you'll reach out to them 10 times. And now sometimes that can feel a little intimidating for folks that are maybe what I kind of call the uninitiated when it comes to sales. But you need to find that those systems. And I've seen people, like, when people hear me say that, what I always recommend people ask themselves, like, how can I make this my own? And I've had folks that I worked with that, the 10 by 10 wasn't quite working for them. So they moved to a 7 by 7. Like something like that you just like have your game plan in place. So if you meet somebody, you get their contact information, what is the next step? That's what you really have to know. Now, the next one that I always recommend for like your longer term follow-up campaigns, whether it be people that you either worked with prior to or you haven't worked with yet, is I'm a big fan of Gary Keller, who's big in real estate. And he has what's called a 36 touch, which I highly, highly believe in, where over the course of 12 months, you will follow up with somebody or touch 36 times, which again can feel intimidating. But if you're getting the good contact information, that will be a lot of email. So like if you have like a weekly or a monthly newsletter, you like send out like certain campaigns at certain times of the year, you have certain events to follow up with, is really, really important. Now, when people think about following up from value, like how do I follow up from value, right? Like how do I do it? And the answer honestly is you already know, you just have to reframe it a little bit. So like when it comes to like, let's say again, like the roofing, for example, I always ask people, okay, if you're in the roofing industry and you've been in it for a little while, what are the questions that you get most often from your clients? I mean, so probably going to be things around like your pricing, like how long it's going to take, what it kind of looks like in terms of like, hey, once the crew is on site, how long does that typically take to get it done start to finish? How long does this typically last? What are they like? I mean, I know there's like a gazillion different kinds of shingles out there. It's like, what kind of roofing should I be looking at? If you're looking to do like, I know like solar is really big right now. People are talking about solar a lot. So if you're thinking about doing solar, like what does that look like for your roof in terms of like longevity, but then also installation, all that kind of stuff. So like, what are some of those questions that you get most often? And the truth is that people don't think about us nearly as much as we think they do or think they should. So when it comes like answering some of those questions, you're like, hey, I heard this guy on the podcast. He has like 5 questions that, I get all the time. I answer those 5 questions. Now, what do I say? And the truth is, again, people aren't reading our stuff as much as we think that they are because we live in our world. They don't. So what we need to be doing is when we find those few 5, 10, 15, 20 questions that we get most often, is that we need to answer them in similar ways over and over again, because those are, again, the most common questions. And there can be like little fun ones too when it comes to follow-ups. Like one of my favorite ones when it comes to like home ownership is like I live in Iowa and it gets really, really cold in Iowa. So like a big staple for us is we need to make sure that we are unplugging our hoses because otherwise it might freeze with water in and ruin our hose. So when it starts to get cold in, late September, October-ish, you can send out a follow-up that's, not really asking for anything at all, just saying, hey, this is, Jacob with, XYZ Roofing. It was really great to work with you this year or last year. It's starting to get colder out there. So make sure that you, take your hose off the tap. Otherwise it might freeze. That's free value that just keeps you front of mind for any time they might need something for the roof.
Yeah. I love that. And I like again, I go back to the sports, right? So we like to keep that list, and we like to do like football pools or, or things like that, or like March Madness pools. And that's just fun ways to engage with people and those touch points without being too salesy, right? And too pushy.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit here and let's go into the kind of the mindset of, we touched a little bit earlier, but I want to see if I can pick your brain on, give me some tools, some things to do when I'm in the slump, right? When I'm, whether maybe it's from an entrepreneurial perspective, sales perspective, I'm trying to build my business, I'm trying to get things going, or, I'm a salesperson and I'm working really hard. And I just, how it is, it's cyclical. We get into that slump. You just get to that place where you're just like, man, I can't seem to sell anything. I can't seem to get anywhere. What are some tricks and tips and tools that I could do to work my way out of that?
So, like the cookie jar one, like that's a really big one that I talk about all the time. Like a big one for me when I've been in slumps in past sales jobs, especially, has been time blocking to absolute consistency. Meaning that, so like it's very common in sales roles, especially like dedicated sales roles, to have prospecting time, like where you're like reaching back out to like, potential prospects or people like new leads, that kind of thing. So if you're time blocking consistently, doing from like 9 to 10 every single day is going to be my prospecting time. And from 10 to 11, I'm going to be reaching back out to emails. And making sure that you have consistent, strong speed to lead is going to be really, really huge. Like I've seen it where, depending on like the industry and stuff, if you can respond to somebody in 5 minutes, then you are 300, almost 400% more likely to convert that person if you can respond to them that quickly. So like when you're in those slumps, you have to find the reasons. And like I said, that's why that vision I think is really important. Because if you don't have a vision for like your business, for your life, if you're like a salesperson, then like what are you really building towards? Like why does it really matter? And like why should you even bother getting through the slump? Why not just find another job someplace, right?
Yep.
So if you understand that vision, you have to have those reasons for driving you forward. Simon Sinek has a really, really great book called Start With Why, which I think is really, it's absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend it to anybody. Where like if you don't really understand like why you're doing and the purpose for doing those things, then ultimately when you get into those slumps, I mean, things are just going to start to get hard. And you're going to start to lose business and lose motivation.
Yep. I love that. All amazing tips and tricks and advice, man. So what's, you know, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here as we kind of land the plane a little bit, but you know, what's the, if someone, first of all, thank you guys for listening to the show. If you've gotten some value from this, make sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends. It helps us out a lot. Whether you're on, you know, if you're listening to the podcast, or you're watching it on the YouTube channel or on social media, we do appreciate you. Feel free to reach out, check in with me, DM me, go to the website, and make sure to like, subscribe, and do all the things. We appreciate you. Same thing for you, Jacob. If I want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to connect with you?
So the best way to connect with me is first and foremost, going to be through my website. It's just jacobhickscoach.com. So I got a ton of free resources on there for you. Check out my tab. It's called Growth Hub. And I've got, some of the books that I mentioned on there, like my top 10 that I'm a big fan of. I also have like some free downloads. Like one of them, if you're like, hey, I kind of like the 10 by 10 idea. How do I build some of those things out? I've got my Entrepreneurial Sales Toolkit, which is a totally free download that'll walk you through how to build out your 10 by 10, what to look for in like a CRM, how to deal with rejection. And then feel free to reach out and message me on like LinkedIn or Instagram. So I'd love to chat with folks. Love
that, my man. So make sure to reach out and connect. We'll get connected as well. And there'll be some links below as well. So you can see that and click those. So let's shift to entrepreneurship as we start to kind of wind it down. You know, give us like your golden nugget, man. If you're working with somebody, or maybe I'm a new entrepreneur, or I'm a struggling entrepreneur, and I'm just really trying to drive sales. I'm trying to get this business going, get it off the ground. What would your best piece of advice would be, or best couple pieces of advice would that be?
Well, I guess when it comes to mindset, like something that I've learned is that our emotions can lie to us. I think that's the truth. I'm a big fan of John Deloney, who he's not really a business guy, but he does like a lot of like therapy and stuff. He works with Dave Ramsey. And like, the truth is like, you have to be able to take a step back. It's like, okay, is this really true? Like we were talking about before, like you're not really an entrepreneur until you wake up in the middle of the night with your head in your hands, not knowing what to do next. So like, if you're in that kind of moment, anybody listening, what I'd highly recommend is to take a minute and journal. Like, I know that can be a little out there sometimes, a little woo woo, but like sit down like with a physical pad and paper if you can, and write down, hey, this is how I'm feeling. And then ask yourself, once you get all of your emotions out on paper, ask yourself, okay, is this really true? And a lot of the time, it's not necessarily. We're just kind of feeling some anxiety. More practically, when it comes to like sales and those kind of things, I said, actually sit down and put a game plan together. It's like, okay, I meet somebody here as a solopreneur. I meet them at a networking event. Here's my very next step all the way through the close of the sale. And then here's my game plan to make sure I'm following up with them so I can hopefully generate some referrals at some point after we close business and after we're done with our transaction. So actually have your game plan is really, really critical, because if we don't have a game plan, then we're just kind of winging it and hoping for the best. And if we ever do want to hire some salespeople, we have no real plan or strategy to give them. We just hope that they know how to sell.
I love that. Yeah. And I like to, you know, the idea of just bookending a day, right? At the end of each day, you know, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Yeah. And then 3 things you need to get done the next day.
I love that.
The next morning, same thing, reflect on that. And then focus on, all right, remind yourself, these are the 3 things I need to do. That's going to, 1, help you sleep better and get more rest, because you already took what's on your mind, you put it out, take a journal to bed, take a notebook to bed, those sort of things. Yeah. That way, if you are kind of finding yourself up at night, cool, journal, write it down, and you'll find yourself able to sleep and get more consistent rest, because our mind's not going to be in a good place if we don't rest. Right. So
I love that. That's a great tip for anybody in life in general.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. Well, Jacob, man, it's been great hanging out with you, my man. I appreciate you. Thanks for jumping on the show. For those of you who are in the space, feel free to make sure to reach out to my guy, Jacob here. And thank you all for joining, for listening. Take care, everybody. God bless.